Hi everyone, welcome
Hello.
to the second Global XR Talks this year, and we have two incredible, cool VR sessions. So you know a little bit more about that, Saskia. So
Well, our first session that I'm super excited about. For that, I am super happy to welcome our two speakers, the founder and CEO of Clever Books, Dr. Darya Yegorina, and her co-founder, Dr. Ina Armstrong. Hey,
Hi.
welcome.
Hi, guys.
We're excited to be here and we're excited to talk about the XR, but this time we're going to talk about augmented reality. So everybody's
Awesome.
ready?
Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to hear about all the crazy things you do about with AR and education and homeschooling. And maybe you want to introduce each other or...
Oh, yes, we're going to do that in a second. Just let me share the PowerPoint so you can see our nice pictures there. Hold on a second.
While you're sharing your presentation, I will start with the introduction if you don't mind. So I'm here to introduce Dr. Darya Yegorina, who is a co-founder, a founder and a co-founder of Clever Books. She's a very inspiring person. But on top of that, she is a visionary leader who is on a mission, on a global mission, to impact the digital transformation in the education sector. So I'm very proud to be part of the team and work closely with her. So here we go.
And thank you so much, Ina. And let me introduce the person who helps the kids around the world to see, hear, and touch the knowledge together with me. Dr. Ina Armstrong. She is a fantastic ex-educator. She is a passionate mom who knows a lot about tech and who is inspiring her kids to use all the digital hacks and everything. So, and I think it's the passion to educate, passion to learn more about technology, and everything together that actually drives us and motivates us to help kids around the world. Now, let's have a look at what we have for you ready today. And we are welcoming any questions you might have, even if they are right now, live streaming, or later on. Any questions anytime are welcome. So, before that presentation that we're going to dive in and show you how augmented reality is saving the education, I would like first to give you an overview of what happened last year for those who are not really connected that much with schooling or education. Well, first of all, how COVID has changed the education. We know that education sector budgets were so small that they were not thinking of buying a lot of tech. They were not thinking of buying a lot of hardware or software or anything. So it's going to be even less money post-COVID because they will be struggling with the budgeting and they will be struggling on finding the way to do the remote schooling. And the interesting thing about that, and I want to ask Ina if she remembers our conversations at the beginning of pandemic with different educators, how the situation was. Do you remember what they were saying about being ready or not being ready for the remote schooling?
Absolutely. That was quite an interesting discussion we had. So we arranged a panel with, I think, 6 or 7 educators, all the way starting from China to including the European educators and the American.
And Mongolia was there. Mongolia, you remember?
That's correct. And it was very interesting to see because the people in the Asian part, they were already going through week 3 or 4 of lockdown. In Europe, we were just starting to have that. And the States were still open, I think, or just starting the closure. So it was quite interesting to actually exchange of the experience and for our American colleagues to see actually how to work things out from the experience of college colleagues who have already been under quarantine for quite some time. But yes, many schools were not ready. Many did not have any hardware to provide to the kids. And actually, some of the schools have really stopped the educational process when the whole pandemic and the lockdown hit. Did you remember the conversation that we had with some of the our colleagues from the States that they were saying about not being ready?
Yeah, so of course, not being ready, meaning that they knew that education technology existed. They knew that there are so many tools out there, but they were not thinking really that something like this might hit, and they might need to, in the week's time, they need to move everybody and for studying remotely. So that meant actually no schooling for many kids. And if you have a look at this chart, you can see that no schooling was for many for those kids in these countries for the whole year, and it might continue even further. Not being ready, meaning that they were lagging behind with knowing that education technology was there. They were thinking and were being reluctant to using it, and these times never come. We might be ready for that, and if something like this happens, we can figure out quickly. But it didn't happen, and that actually created a lot of inequality because there were so many delays in distance learning. Not everybody was ready to create these learning management systems. Not everybody was ready to entertain the kids the way they could be in the classroom. Not everybody was ready for everything that happened last year. But the thing is that actually created learning loss. And learning loss might seem to be to us like, oh, well, okay, kids missed school for a couple of months. That's not a big deal. Actually, it is. Learning loss is the economic loss because those kids are actually lacking the knowledge that they could have got when they were starting at school. And that created a massive problem already. But we might ask the question, was there really no attack? Ina, what do you think? Was there really no attack at all?
Absolutely not. EdTech, as we know, have been on the market for quite some time, and we can definitely see how businesses adjust to digital technologies and digital tools that are out there. However, we could definitely say that the education sector was quite behind and still is quite behind. So obviously, a lot of schools and educators who are passionate about technology, who are interested in innovation, we're bringing on board hardware or software solutions just to make sure that to differentiate the learning process and integrate part of those technology as supplementary material and in fact as part of the core curriculum as well. But I think there were still many schools that were teaching in traditional way, and I think that's what created this inequality and not readiness, because although educators knew exactly that education technology, it should be part of the educational process, but not having that on board when the pandemic hit, I think that's what made a very big difference. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting part of it as well is that in many cases, the people who tried the EdTech and they were trying that prior to the pandemic, they were not really getting ready to the pandemic or any sorts of these kinds, but they were actually learning something new on how to utilize the technology to drive the innovative approaches in the education. But the interesting thing that even people, when they went for homeschooling, the parents, and I actually was one of them, and I want to complain officially that I was completely distracted because my kid in the age of technology in a European country had to receive her homework by email to my email, and I have to then supervise her doing the homework, and then she would be taking pictures, and I would have to send those pictures to the teacher at school, which is absolutely ridiculous because I have my own job and I need to do it, and it was really difficult to cope with that. But you know what it also created? Those kids who were having the living cert grades, they actually faced inequality. And Ina can give her example of being one of those because her son actually was at the living grade last year. Can you share your experience?
Absolutely. We were actually very lucky and very excited that when the pandemic hit, by the time it was graduation, my son actually had the opportunity to graduate, although it was quite an interesting experience of having a class picture of kids standing 1.5 meter away from each other, and the photographer being on top of a 3-meter ladder to take picture of all of them, try to fit them in one picture. So that kind of was quite an interesting experience. But again, finishing without the official exams, and also being forced to wait for a longer period of time when the grades were calculating based on predicted grades, based on the overall performance. So it was very different experience, and many students were seeing that the grades were unfair, and which eventually actually costed them places at the universities.
Yeah, so that was the situation, and the education was completely disrupted. And the interesting thing that I was talking about the education being in a sort of analog age compared to the business, where everybody is in digital age and talking about digital transformation. So finally, education was one of the industries that was completely disrupted by digital, and that actually costed schools who were not adopting technology at the end, really big stakes and big money, and a lot of students and a lot of learning losses, and a lot of bad things happening to kids. And I think it's unfair because it was at the end of the day the kids who were having these troubles and facing this problem. Now, good to the fun part. So how augmented reality actually helped the education? The interesting thing about that is that during pandemic, a lot of providers of augmented reality and virtual reality and other education technology, they have supported with the free resources. But the question is, were the resources actually in use? Ina, can you share your experience? What have you learned from the educators? Which resources have they used and how they selected them?
That was quite an interesting aspect because obviously when the pandemic hits, there are lots of educators and a lot of organizations who are trying to build databases of educational resources to share it with educators worldwide to actually equip them with all the necessary tools and links where they can find the resources based on experience of other educators who are already using that. And interestingly enough, augmented reality has become quite a significant aspect of remote learning, because the biggest challenge that teachers were facing is how to keep the kids actually focused and for a longer period of time when they were conducting Zoom meetings, and how to keep them excited and motivated and wanting to wake up in the morning and actually go to class. So this is when augmented reality actually was playing quite a significant aspect, and kids were so excited and so motivated to see, figures coming to life, and the teacher presenting, let's say, a marker in front of them, and the kids were having their telephones facing the cameras on the device and experiencing that exciting way of learning, and they wanted to explore further. They had this wow effect. They wanted to know more. They were asking questions, they were participating more in the class. And I think that's something that every teacher really wanted to see, that the learning curve is still there, see that they're very excited, they still having the motivation to go to class, and then after the class finish, they still have the energy to actually learn more and perform.
Yeah, that's a good point here. And the interesting thing about the augmented reality, we're not going to talk about what is augmented reality, because in XR talks, everybody's actually know what is AR at the end of the day. But the interesting thing about augmented reality, it can help with a lot of things. And why we like saying at Cleverbook, seeing, hearing, and touching the knowledge, because that's exactly what augmented reality does. And if we talk about digital natives, who the kids are at the end of the day, they require this digital learning. They require access to devices because they are all the time trying to access the information, and the information is available now at their fingertips. They don't need to go to the library or somewhere else. They just, go and take the device from parents or their own if they have one, and it already drives their motivation to explore the world further. So they have a different learning curve, and that's why augmented reality was one of the key tools that actually helped during the pandemic. So why augmented reality actually helped in the way that it supported the education? So first of all, it has engaged students in learning. And it has engaged students in learning regardless they had internet connection or they didn't have internet connection. Because at the end of the day, having the mobile app installed and having the marker, or if it's a markerless solution, it just created that environment for them to play and entertain themselves. It has maintained the kids' attention and focus during the lessons, as Ina said. And that's the feedback that we have received from the educators in different countries. When they were trying to create those engaging lessons, even to bring the magic on the screen by showing a marker-based solution with the with the AR, and asking kids to face the device of their parents or their own devices on that screen, that helped a lot to create this wow effect. So that was bringing the different lessons of travels to different countries, although you are sitting at home, of learning about different animals when you would be going like that to the zoo or something like this, sitting in at your desk. It was helping a lot of making the abstract content in geometry like absolutely understandable, because they were visual. And maybe you can go ahead and talk about other aspects of the augmented reality support, how it supported the education in pandemic.
Yes, I think another aspect is enable the simulations of something that is not otherwise possible. And just watching a video even becomes a little bit boring for the kids. It's just consuming the content, but the whole part comes from the interacting with the content that is more valuable for the students, where they can actually navigate and explore themselves what they do.
Maybe creating as well. Creating the content is also a cool part.
Absolutely. And so that's what actually kind of creates this learning environment that is more dynamic. And so where this energy coming from and the excitement, the whole curiosity part comes from. So which sparks eventually the curiosity of wanting to learn more, and opens the other opportunity for virtual trips and creating and showcasing the environment that you can't bring to the classroom or you can't bring to your home.
Thanks a lot. And by the way, what we have noticed as well, following the educators that are innovators and those who are early adopters of technology in their classrooms, parents were actually engaged a lot in the homeschooling, and for them it was also important to explain somehow in a fun way the maths or geometry or some science aspects, and that's where augmented reality actually supported their efforts in helping kids to learn.
That's actually quite an interesting point that you said, because it's not only from a teacher perspective that showcasing and integrating the augmented reality resources in the education sector, education environment was helpful, but also it helped the parents who needed to support the kids during the homework time, etc. They were also able to address those homework environments in a more fun and engaging way by using the augmented reality resources. So actually many educators passed along all the resources they had available to a parent community, so they were able to use that with their kids at home.
Yeah, and the interesting thing that, like, what could be better if you can explain your kid how the science works, how you can launch the rocket to space. If you just, open the app, take the information from there, and in an interactive way, you just assemble the rocket together with your kid and showcase and send it to space. It's a kind of play and learning environment at the same time. And before the pandemic, we had a lot of conversations with the homeschooling parents and the homeschooling associations in different countries. The interesting thing there, that even at that point of time, they were really engaged, and they told that augmented reality supports those explanations. Sometimes you can draw something on a piece of paper, But it's not the same way where you can show this 3D dimensional object and it's available at your fingertips. And sometimes people think like, oh my God, this technology looks so cool. It might be so expensive. Actually, it's not. In many cases, you can have a lot of free stuff out there, and it's really supportive in the teaching and learning process, regardless if you are a teacher or a parent. And I think that even beyond the pandemic state, beyond the lockdown, for any parent who wants to support their kid in learning, they can use the augmented reality resources just to explain the school subjects if it's not really clear for the kids through the textbooks or the explanations of the teacher in the classroom. But let's see, what can augmented reality actually do and how it was used during the lockdowns? So Ina, maybe you can drive us through the field trip.
Bring the elephant to the classroom. So that was quite an exciting example that some of the teachers did as part of the lesson, is to create a field trip to Africa and bring all the animals that live in the African continent and give the opportunity to the kids to explore all those animals in a 3D dimensional way, touch them on the screen, bring them forward to life, and also look from different perspective, hear what sounds they make, and also better understand the whole environment that they live in. And it's something very magical that happens when the kids do have the opportunity to have this imaginary experience where they actually become part of it.
Yeah, so Cleverbooks was supporting in the way that we were providing the free mobile application that helps kids actually to learn different continents and travel through the geographies. And you can learn these different animals. You can interact with them. You can hear the sound, so that's why it comes about hearing. You can touch the animals, and you can also feed them and interact with them in a way like you would be in the zoo. So essentially, you're traveling through African savanna, meeting the animals, meeting the plants, meeting everything. And the interesting thing about that lesson is that teacher created not only that as a journey, but also put different quizzes around so kids could explore more on their own through the digital content rather than just focusing on the illustrations in the book or just scrolling through the animals and so on and so forth. The teacher has done this lesson right online and provided the kids with the material to work on their own. And the feedback was amazing because the engagement was a lot higher compared to the standard textbooks.
And remember, the kids have remembered almost everything that they've learned in that lesson. So we're talking about 100% retention rate, and the increase in knowledge is tremendous.
Yeah, and so then other lesson that we want to share and how Cleverbooks help is that we heard from the teacher who is teaching mathematics in the primary grades, and during the period of pandemic they had these lessons in geometry. And geometry had 2D shapes, 3D shapes. The interesting thing is that explaining 2D shapes is quite easy. You just draw something on a piece of paper and you're good to go. But it becomes a little bit more difficult if you try to do something with the video and you try to showcase something which is 3D dimensional. So there is no better tool to do that as augmented reality. So for that specific lesson, the facilitation was through the augmented reality application and also through the web-based augmented reality, which is actually gaining the popularity as well among schools, because many classrooms around the world still don't have the mobile devices as such, and it's difficult to adopt the technology like augmented reality that might require the camera at the back of the device in order to produce the augmentation and the overlay of the imaging. So some classrooms might require the web-based AR, which we have through our Augmented Classroom resource, and it was extremely helpful for the teachers who claim that their kids they don't have just simply the mobile device at home to have this experience. And how to explain the cross section like you see in this motion picture, or how to explain the 3D dimensional fractions. There is no easy and fun way better than the augmented reality to do that. So the feedback was that explanation of what is a cube, explanation what is a sphere, and how you can cut it in semispheres it became so much easier. And also we got a really interesting feedback from specific classrooms and the kids with special needs who might need a little bit more time to engage with the content, a little bit more effort from the teacher. It actually relieved the teachers because they showcase once on how to use the app, and then the student could do as many repetitions as it was required for him personally to develop the knowledge about specific subject. So we're talking here about augmented reality also helping to personalize the approach to learning and help kids to engage with different senses while interacting with the augmented content. Maybe Ina, you took us through diving into the waters.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good point that you mentioned in regards to inclusivity of students with special needs. And what we've learned from different educators is that those kids were the ones who haven't had much support during the remote learning time. And again, augmented reality resources were actually quite a good contribution towards their academic achievement and towards making the lessons for them more interactive, more engaging. And that was provided to their parents and also through personalized Zoom conferences specifically to tailor the needs of those students who have learning difficulties or a delay in certain aspects, learning aspects. So for example, diving into the sea, and one way is to learn about the underwater animals is when you go to see different pictures, you see different videos, etc. And a completely other experience is actually when you feel like you're part of the ocean, like you're diving deep, down deep, and you have all those fish right around you swimming, and you have the opportunity to look and explore and see and learn, and then you remember. And this imaginary aspect, I think it's quite crucial for students at primary level, because that's what really empowers their learning, is to imagine how it would be, and that's how they remember, they learn, and then they want to explore more.
And talking about imagination is an extremely important thing in the learning process. And I think augmented reality is one of the key tools that supports that, together with the virtual reality as well. Why imagination is so important? We never think of that, but imagination actually drives innovation. It drives innovative way of presenting and looking into things, and drives creativity. And I think one of the key parts in every learning process is to keep this imagination. And there is an interesting statistic that actually says that kids till the age of 12 have a broad imagination, like really crazy one. And then it decreases. At the age of 12, it's getting less. At the age of 20, it's getting less. And at the age of 20 plus, it's even going nowhere, because we are putting the standard education process on everybody. We are telling people, here what you need to do, because this is correct and this is incorrect. But for imagination and creativity, there is nothing correct and incorrect. So I think that when we help them to imagine they are under the water, when we help kids to imagine they bring the elephant in the room, when we help kids to see that they can actually be in power to rotate the sphere on their fingertips, and that's something that creates this broad understanding of the world and creates these limitless possibilities for creativity. Because those kids, this generation that is right now at school, this is the generation that will rule the world in a couple of decades. The interesting part here is that we need to support them with that knowledge. We need to keep their creativity, and we need to keep them being innovators in the field that they decide to go for.
Absolutely. And I think augmented reality is one of the tools that helps to both teachers and kids to know how to integrate technology strategically in the learning process and also how to apply those technologies into practice.
Yeah, so that's absolutely cool point. And what could be better if you can, if you don't have the opportunity, and it could be absolutely different situations. It could be like lockdown where you have to stay at home. It could be also the situation that you can't physically travel. If it could be the situation that you can't afford to travel. What could help you to explore other countries and to create this limitless thinking and limitless creativity and limitless innovation possibilities than the technologies like augmented and virtual reality? And that's one of the that's why we absolutely in love with the augmented reality as one of the tools that supports this, in my opinion, absolutely extremely important part of human possibilities. That's the creativity. This is something that cannot be taken away by any robots. It cannot be taken away by any artificial intelligence. Creativity and innovation, it's something that will drive the world forward.
Absolutely. And I think now we're in times when we can't travel at all. And I think many are missing that. But we still, the time still passes. There's still a need to learn, to explore. And I think that's why augmented reality is such a cool thing as well, tool or resource that could be integrated. First of all, is to keep kids, kind of remind the kids that the world is extremely big. And there's an opportunity to explore it. However, we're all restricted now, and but having a piece of this, opportunity to actually interact and feel that one day we'll be able to travel again, I think it's quite an important aspect as well.
Yeah, and they need to understand that the world is extremely beautiful. And that's actually the example of how augmented reality from Cleverbooks supports learning about science and engineering and space.
But yes, now we're moving to space. We're spoken about the world, but now we're actually taking them to space.
Yeah, so you can sit at your home and you can still imagine that you are the person who's going to be traveling to space. You can build your own, you can assemble your own spaceship, and you can send it to the mission. You can select the mission to wherever you like, and you can imagine that you are traveling. And it doesn't matter if this spaceship is traveling around your room right now. In the future, it could be the case that it is actually traveling in the real space and with the real spaceship. And that's, I think, the power of education and the power of technology, because they can deliver this opportunity for the kids to travel.
Absolutely, and the space exploration is on the roadmap and it's coming, and one day we will be actually going, everyone would be able to go into space. So I think giving the kids opportunity to learn about different planets, about the rocket science, about everything that is out there and soon will actually become accessible, it's a fantastic opportunity.
And also, it's important to mention that augmented reality helps you to learn about the world around you. So you can see here, we are traveling right now together with you to Moscow, because we can see the St. Basil's Cathedral that is in the center of Moscow. And on the one side of the static picture is like a picture from the book. But on the other side, you can see the augmented version of the St. Basil's Cathedral, which you can rotate and look from absolutely different sides. And with the augmented reality, you can have this feeling that you have seen all those tiny windows and everything, and like you have been there. So this opportunity to create this virtual trip to discover the heritage around the world, to learn more about it, and then at the end of the day have the real trip there. This is a tremendous step forward in any education process. Ina, would you have any of your personal experiences? Because Ina has traveled a lot around the world. And when we were creating the 3D models for the heritage inside the Cleverbooks app, Ina was comparing them with the photos from her real album of travels.
Absolutely. And even it's not just for the kids an exciting part. Obviously, not so many families do have the opportunity to travel around the world and see different places. So for those kids, I think it's a great inspiration that one day they will grow up and they will have the opportunity on their own to travel the world and actually see all those beautiful places in reality. However, for example, for kids who have the opportunity to travel and see different places, it creates this, again, brings the memories back, great memories, exciting memories, and which plays a crucial role in remembering the material, what they're studying about. So having the opportunity to see that in front of your eyes and interact with you and be part of the environment, I think it's a great experience, learning experience.
So the important thing about augmented reality and that's an example of how we have supported at Clever Books during the pandemic and keep on supporting further, because we believe that it's important for kids to have the opportunity to learn with the newest technology. And that's why we have the tools that support them to explore the knowledge, to create and co-create together, and to collaborate within the augmented reality environments. And with this, I think the presentation is to the end, and we're open to any questions.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Alexander, thank you so much. That was a really, really interesting presentation. I wish I had the software when I was a kid.
I think this
is. It's such a cool way to make lessons more immersive and interactive. And like you said, the retention rate is much higher, which is also something we see with other training solutions for XR. So I think that's a really cool application. I don't see questions from the audience yet, so I can ask a question. So audience, please, give us your questions. Otherwise, I have a lot. Are you already using this in schools anywhere, or is it still in development?
We are using that in schools around the world. Ina can tell you the number because I'm more a product person in that sense. Yeah, we do use that in schools. We are running that. We're going to be running that in several different languages also in Europe. The interesting thing, I'm always wondering, and this is something I want to test because we just launched the new languages apart from English, if there's going to be any difference for kids. Because as far as I know, we use that in absolutely different countries where English is not even the first language, and it doesn't disturb the kids to use that and engage with the software and have interactive lessons. So Ina, over to you. How many countries?
We are present in 62 countries around the world with, I think, over 17,000 students using it, and in different schools and different grade levels. And it's actually the interesting point that you said about the languages, because by having such a great variety of schools where the solutions are used, they're used more to help students learn English as a second language, and obviously there's a different perception of content where students don't have English as a native language. So it will be interesting to see the statistics of how that changes once the kids actually have the opportunity to interact with the same resources but in their own native language.
Yeah, interesting. We get actually a question related to how you create the content.
Okay, that's a very good and interesting question. And thanks for asking. So the content is created not by us, because we're not in the pedagogy, we are not in any curricular building, but we have the team of educators from different curriculum that combine the contents together. So it's going to be relevant for the global curriculum-based guidelines, meaning that all of us studied in different schools in different countries, I bet. Right here, even between the speakers. But all of us know what is a sphere. We all know that there are several continents in the world. We know who is elephant, even if we haven't been to the zoo. We know the capitals of different countries we haven't visited. So meaning that there are different common areas between the curriculums. So we have a group of educators that actually combines that So we put the relevant curriculum. So our material, our apps are used as the supplementary material for any curriculum of the world.
Great, thank you. And do you have subjects where you say those subjects are a better fit for this kind of technology? When you showed some examples, but I can imagine like smaller kids learning to write, or like mathematics that doesn't have 3D images is more difficult than biology, for example. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, good. It's a good question. So we need to so augmented reality is a technology, right? So we need to step and think from this technology and what is the capabilities of this technology. The capabilities of augmented reality are really massive. So you can use different replications of geolocation for the field trips. You can use the different text and annotations. You can use implemented in the augmented reality field 3D objects, 2D objects, different quizzes and stuff like that. So application of technology depends on where you want to use it. So obviously anything that is visual is absolutely suitable for the augmented reality, right? Because augmented reality will support that, visualization that you can see from different sides. If it's possible to apply for learning, yeah, in some sense, you might be showing different animals or objects or something and saying like, hey, kitty, tell me what is this? And the kid can say, if it's going to be voice-enabled interaction with the AI technology, or the kid can type in and put in different letters that are missing in the word. Depends on how you can put it and from the instructional point of view. But in first place, in my opinion, augmented reality is the visualization. So any subject that could be visually represented, we are good to go. And especially for something like chemistry, for something like geometry, something that's absolutely abstract. And you say like, imagine the molecule of water. So all of us, I see by the face, we imagined water molecule straight away. Of course not, because we don't even remember how it looks like. It's H2O, and we don't remember, right? But because we saw that in the picture of the book, which was probably exactly that old as the school we studied in was old, or that book was used by our parents and something like that. So it didn't actually had that emotional connotation with the knowledge acquired, and that's why we don't remember. The augmented reality creates this emotional connection between learning and experiencing that learning. And that's why something that you experience through emotions creates better and long-term memory for that emotion. So that's the easy explanation where it works, actually.
It's actually an interesting point about, for example, the science, that many schools don't have the labs to perform the science experiments, etc. So where augmented reality becomes a great tool to actually give the opportunity to students to experiment in the virtual environment. And for example, dissecting the frog, it's not just, for example, the schools would not have the material, but many kids actually can't do it physically. So again, bringing that experiment into the augmented reality creates this atmosphere of more tolerance from the kids' perspective to actually do something like that. So, and because now augmented reality started with content being created, so it was used to consume the content in an interactive way. But now augmented reality experience is moving into creation and collaboration mode, which means that students can create within the augmented reality environment and can fit any subject.
Yeah, interesting. Actually, I from my own experience, I've actually seen the same thing. Like I once built an AR application for also where there was a subject that the students basically had trouble grasping because it was too abstract, physics, electricity, and by making an AR version of it, they were suddenly like able to remember something much easier. So yeah, that's amazing.
I have also a question, actually.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Go ahead, Alexander.
Thanks. I'm just curious. I mean, in my scenario, I have a daughter with Down syndrome. So I I played around with a lot of XR technology, and I always have been thinking about what would be possible to create something to help her to educate. I'm just curious, where do you start with something like that? I mean, do you create a storyline up front? Um, yeah, I'm just curious.
Okay, that's a question that is near and dear to my heart. So I am working since last year on a massive project which I want to roll out globally. But this project is specifically connected of how augmented reality is helping the kids with special needs. And that includes the kids with the Down syndrome, with the autistic syndrome disorder. So any kids that might benefit from using this technology. And there is a methodology behind. So we put within a team together, and we're adopting those existing apps that we have to those kids, and we have also the extra apps created specifically for the kids with special needs. I need to share that with you, Alex. So you will
Definitely.
yeah,
I want
you
to try that out. No worries.
in some cases, the STEM subjects, they need a lot of repetition, and those kids would be just interacting on their own in many cases by sitting and clicking on the same picture multiple times in order to learn something.
Yeah.
We're working together with the Down Syndrome Association, and they are pilot testing our solution, and they are rolling out that not only on the kids, but also on the adults. They find it useful for them to enlarge vocabulary as well. And it helps them to understand the world better. But the important point, that's about the STEM in general, how the apps are adopted for that purpose. But there are specifically apps created to help those kids in different real life situations, like finding the way around when you're crossing the street, understanding how the supermarket can be loud and stuff like that. And also like learning different wardrobes and different actions, repeating those actions. There is a specific methodology and specific apps with this methodology behind for special needs, but some apps in terms of STEM area, they can be used the way they are. But you're right that in some cases there must be a special touch. Do you have anything to add, Ina?
No, I think you've covered more or less aspects. And as Darya said, this is something that we are currently working on quite extensively, because there is an enlarged need, let's say, into building something like that.
It's going to be a big announcement.
It is good to hear that, because it's often a group of people who are mostly forgotten when you talk about education. It's like the same when, like doing tests. So there are only tests available for people without any disability, and they use the same test for people with a disability. Yeah. And then they start complaining that the child
there is a big difference.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? In my opinion, tests is a ridiculous thing invented by people. Because by tests, we are checking if the fish can fly. Okay? Not everybody is excellent in all the subjects. You can't test everybody the same way, you know? And we are essentially testing the same abilities because somebody somewhere decided this is the standardized test. It needs to be this way. It doesn't matter. I might have imagination. I might have different understanding of the topic, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. And we are teaching at schools that this is wrong, and you need to make sure that you get that scoring that is designed by somebody sitting somewhere. So, but it's my opinion. I'm very much hated by this.
Thank you.
No. No, I think that's a very valid point. Yeah. I actually have one last question about thinking about kids and Corona, and all the kids are at home, they don't see their friends. So how cool would it be to actually be able to play with your friends in that kind of environment? Have you thought about doing that? Some kind of
absolutely. Absolutely, it's already in the progress, and that's what we referred to when we said in regards to not just being able to consume the pre-designed content, not just create within the augmented reality, but we're talking now about co-creation as in the multiple players or also collaborating in the augmented reality environment, again, with multiple players. I think it's quite an important aspect because, again, it's not just about personalized learning anymore, but it's about creating collaboration projects, about learning how to collaborate, critical thinking in a collaborative environment, and giving the opportunity to actually the students to own the projects they have created themselves, and also the teamwork, which is an important aspect.
Teamwork.
Yes.
And what is she saying is like, in the simple words, it's just the augmented space where we all four of us, we can go in and we can start putting different animals, plants, building the houses, putting the streets, and building the city or the farm or something all together. And this project could be animated, and that's our own augmented reality that we have created. And I think that's the exciting part for all the kids today, because you learn something, but then you have your hands on doing something. And with learning by doing is one of the extremely important aspects, I believe.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I see there are no more questions from the audience. Alexander, do you have any left questions?
No. I had some questions, but actually they got answered while we were talking. So well, one of the questions, but you actually answered that already, was that I was curious if there's a difference. I think there's a difference, but how you take care of that, the difference in age when using AR for teaching, because I can imagine that for a child of 4, it's different than for a child of 10. Their interests are different.
Absolutely. And that was quite interesting because I personally conducted interviews, I think back in 2018, 2019, when this co-creation and collaboration in the augmented reality environment was still, just the beginning probably. I've spoken to educators and I asked them, okay, when is the time when students can actually consume the create, and when is the time when they're starting to interact and create the content? So it was quite interesting because they said that at the primary education, it's important for students to actually understand the basic concepts of how the content is created and why it's created that way. Because once they get those concepts and the structure and understanding, then they would be able, more likely in, let's say, middle school, they would be able to actually create their own projects, have the ownership of those projects, but they have a solid foundation on how that is done. And then obviously when they move to high school, then they have the opportunity to not just to create and more complex projects, but also teach younger students in why it's done that way and create the collaborative projects with the younger students as well.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you again so much for this really interesting talk. I think we learned a lot today, and well, thank you so much for joining us. And
you're extremely welcome, guys.
Absolute pleasure.
And well, see you maybe another time.
Absolutely.
Thank you
so much.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So, Alexander, that was awesome.
That was indeed awesome. I think it's a subject which is because of COVID-19 becomes more and more important.
Yeah, and it's on many people's minds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm funny enough is I do just like you. I use a lot of XR technology. I use HoloLens. I use virtual reality headsets. I use my tablet. I use my PC. And in most cases, I always try my kids not to get behind the stuff. But the funny thing is that you can actually use it to teach children. And,
yeah.
But it is. I think that's because I know what the effect will be if you do it too much.
It's hard to get them away from it again. But yeah, it makes them so enthusiastic about wanting to learn. I can imagine even like kids that are not that much into school and learning, they can also, become more enthusiastic if they can use new technologies.
I agree completely. So in 6 minutes, we are actually starting with the second session. The second session is from Vipin Duno. He's from Australia, so his time will be around 5 a.m. in the morning. So I expect him in about 6 minutes, hopefully.
I love it. I love it how enthusiastic our speakers are, like getting up at 5 in the morning just to give a talk.
Is this better, Simon? Can you hear me now? He's telling me I need to tune up my mic. I'm gonna switch my mic. Yeah, let me change a little bit.
Now we have some time. We can, in the meantime.
So I think you can hear me now again. Yeah.
Mention some other things in the meantime, like our next event in a month exactly on March 17th. We will again probably have 2 or 3 really cool speakers. What else, Alexander?
What else? Yes. So one of the most important things is last year we did the Global XR Bootcamp as we did all the years before. But last year we had to do it online, and that was completely different. So it was actually not a bootcamp, it was more like a conference. And we had a 24-hour, perfect, Simon. I'm happy that you can hear me. Sometimes technology will not work. So last year we did 24-hour sessions. We had about 50 sessions going on 4 channels.
All live.
Yeah, all night.
We were crazy.
It was a really crazy night. This year we're going to do it a little bit different. We noticed that most of the viewers were around the afternoon till midnight. So we decided to, and since all sessions are recorded, people without the other time zones can actually listen to that later. So we have now decided to make the Global XR, to rename the Global XR Bootcamp to Global XR Conference. And that will happen on November 10th till 12th. And it will be 3 days, at least 4 channels, each day from Central European time, 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 11, 12 in the evening. We expect to have more than 60 sessions. We're going to look if we can have workshops. We still have a separate channel for community leaders around the world who wants to do their sessions and want to use the same broadcast channels. So we're going to make it even a little bit bigger, because we had last year over 7,000 viewers in 24 hours, which is just ridiculous. We were never expecting that. So hopefully we can go further this year. So that's one of the major things what is going to happen. Another thing is I'm just talking because Vipin is still not here. But it is an important one. So last year when we did the Global XR Talks, we had the same session also broadcasted to AltSpaceVR. Now, AltSpaceVR has gone through some changes due to some reasons. And I think you have the police in the background.
I do.
And the problem we had was that the broadcasting then not always worked that great. So we decided for the last, for January and February this year, not to do it. Now, AltSpaceVR has now a new way of how you can actually broadcast to AltSpaceVR. But we are still thinking maybe not to do it simultaneously. We noticed that when people are looking at YouTube, there are less. They want to switch to AltSpaceVR during the session. So what we will be thinking about is in the future, but we will get back to that with maybe a poll, is to see if we can, for example, do 1 month session to YouTube, and the second, like we're now doing, and then the second month, for example, to do it from AltSpaceVR, and then the session is completely run from AltSpaceVR. So that is the idea.
Yeah, but you can still, at least today and in the future, join us after this YouTube stream in AltSpaceVR. We still have the XR community zone there. The link is below. And we will be there after the second talk in VR for a little bit.
Yeah, so to already give you an idea of what the session will be, so Vipin Duno is what it is more, we'll do a session what is called a VR visualization of climate change impact. And his session will be, he's actually a generative artist, an XR architect. And he's from Australia, and he is going to showcase what the damaging consequences are of sea level rising. Now, I have been, and we talked about it before actually the session started. I've been a diver in the past, and so I know exactly what the consequences are and the effects are when divers and people, what the effect is of sea level risings for all the nature underwater. So it's a very important thing. Now, he is still not here. I'm hoping he will be here in 1 or 2 minutes.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. What do we do in the meantime? Well, we always have still our call for speakers out.
Yes.
So if you feel like telling us a bit about what you're doing in this field, please don't hesitate and go to our website and sign up with your session. Can be anything, can be your hobby project, can be your work, as long as it's anything on VR, AR, mixed reality, or WebXR.
Yeah, and what we also do is that if for some reason you're not selected for Global XR Talks, it doesn't mean we're not selecting you, because it could also be that we suggest to send in your session to the Global XR conference, which will take place in November. We only have 2 slots available on the Global XR Talks every month. We do it 11 months because 1 month is the conference. So we only have 22 slots during the year to actually fill up. I'm just curious, what shall we talk about now?
Well, we can also take a minute to thank our sponsors.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So this event.
Yeah,
go ahead, Alexander. No,
I will do.
So Global XR Talks and the Global XR Conference are sponsored by our wonderful sponsors, Microsoft, Capgemini, Ordina, and the Dutch police. Thank you so much to our sponsors who make it possible that we sit here and talk.
Indeed. And when we hopefully, if there are other sponsors who would like to sponsor, you can contact us at Global XR Talks or at globalxrconference.com. What shall we do? Shall we put on a pause screen for the moment and then wait till he appears?
Let's have a little break. And then hopefully in the next 5 to 10 minutes, we will have our next...
give us a few minutes. If for some reason the session is not continuing, we will let you know in a few minutes. And then we will actually progress to the AltSpaceVR environment. If the session will take place, you will see us in a few minutes. Hi there.
So, we are back.
Yes, and we have great news because we have him in the house. So let me pull him directly in. Hi, Vipin.
Welcome, Vipin. Vipin is in Australia, and it's 5 a.m. at his location.
Okay. Hi,
I hope you
Vipin.
can hear us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Vipin. Thank you so much for joining us at this crazy time for you in Australia.
Our pleasure.
Can you turn on your audio a little bit more?
Yep. It's just, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. It's just my volume is a bit loud now. Okay.
So,
Sorry, I'm late, I think, but yeah.
no worries. I explained up front that you are from Australia and that for you it is 5 a.m. in the morning. So I'm really happy that you want to make some time for us so early in the morning. So
Also, it started raining quite bad. It's changing seasons here, so we're going into spring.
okay.
Yes. So interesting times.
So let me introduce you to everyone. So this is Vipin Duno. He's going to do aftermath a VR visualization of climate change impact. So welcome. Can you tell a little bit about yourself?
I am. Did you want me to put the presentation on, or would that be for later? Sorry.
Sorry.
Whatever you want, basically. You can do it now. You can.
I can. Let me bring that up because I've got a few.
Slides where you tell it in. Yeah, okay.
Slides. Yes. So I can lead on with.
No worries. Just if you share if you also want to share audio, make sure to select that.
Yep. So.
You get a lot of good mornings of people.
Everyone. So let me see if I can still work that out. Share screen, and then share application window. I don't know if you still be able to see me, but
Yes.
Yes,
perfect.
Yeah, so that leads in nicely to an intro about me. My name is Vipin. By trade, I'm an architect, but I've also been doing immersive experiences and games for like 7 years now. And I'm also currently studying a dual master's in sustainable environments and planning and project management at Bond University in Australia.
Nice. We will leave the presentation to you now. If you have any questions, just let us know.
Sure, thanks. So I initially thought it would be good to show you, a few of the images of the interactions and games I've done. So the first one to the left is a project for a museum that I did, so immersive. And then the natural history is quite something that's dear to me. And the extinct dodos, I thought it would be quite cool project to do with in AR and VR. And also casual games for the Indian Ocean Island Games, which is something similar to the Olympics, but for islands in the Indian Ocean. So all this is available on the website, which I'll share you the link in a bit. But the most pressing issue following my enrollment at Bonn was climate change, how I can kind of dedicate my knowledge and my know-how in the different fields I have to climate change. So I started working about a year and a half ago, on this project of mine, which showcases kind of what's potentially, what could potentially happen in the future in the island of Mauritius. And this, I came up with these kind of concept images, mostly inspired from the Pacific Islands here, northeast of Australia, where some of the islands, especially Kiribati, which is currently sinking, and they're using the methods they have, which is using seawalls to prevent sea level rise, but also the effect of ocean plastics that gets washed ashore, and the idea of, as you can see at the bottom, of animals also being affected by it. So that's where Aftermath came along, which promises a interactive and an immersive experience. And my website is just down there if you'd like to visit, do feel free. So as I mentioned, I'm currently studying in Australia, but originally I'm from the island of Mauritius, which is right down here. I'll do it one more time if that was too quick. So we're right in the middle of nowhere, and we're quite small. We're just about 2,000 kilometers square in area, with a population of 1.2 million. And after my architecture studies, which I undertook in the UK, I realized the shoreline was receding, and that's kind of started me thinking. You hear things in the news, but actually seeing it for yourself is something a bit different. So why is this important to preserve? Is because the shoreline is homes. They are the homes of people, but also there are UNESCO listed sites of World Heritage importance, but mostly tourism. Prior to COVID, we were aiming to get around 2 million, and we were getting like 1.5. So tourism is, wasn't important before the pandemic on the island. So moving back out now, why is this issue crucial? That's because it affects not only Mauritius, but all the islands in the world, as well as all the coastal regions of continents. So upon embarking on this project, realized there was quite a bit of unawareness and also divided opinion about the issue, with people, a certain percentage of people still unsure of whether it was a real thing. And one thing we saw was that there's plenty that's being done in by the scientific community and researchers, but unfortunately it's quite dense with text and quite academic also. So we started to think about how we could bring this information to people. And bear in mind, this project was carried out before COVID. So we started to think about planes, how planes could be, taken on, you could take people on trips, but that could be expensive and not good for the environment also. How about the subscription sort of subscription basis, sending you pictures to your emails, but that would probably end up in your trash. So this crazy idea kind of got into me. It was like, why not create like a sort of time machine? By time machine, we already possess kind of the technologies to create one via virtual reality and all the immersive technologies we currently have. And it's actually been shown by Stanford Uni that people are more likely to be empathetic after being immersed in a virtual environment. And they've done tests where people are brought in a room, shown an image, read the text, and also done the VR. And by 80%, over 80% of participants who undertook the VR test became more aware of issues around climate change. So I'm going to show you a well, the whole demo. Normally, it's more ideal if you experience it by yourself, but I think the video would give you a good understanding of what Aftermath is. So Aftermath starts with like a cutscene where people are taken into the actual environment of a location in Mauritius, quite popular, the Red Church, which I'll show you later. And as they kind of enter the church, they sort of black out, not black out, but sort of get transported into a future that has been affected by climate change. To give you the idea of before and after. So we're now in where the effects of climate change, erosion, etc., has taken place. And as you can see, you can actually move around in the space using a locomotion system, which is teleportation or transportation. And you can move around anywhere in the space. And as you see, as I'm moving around, there are settlements, which are very shanty in nature, as well as rubbish all over the place. So the settlements, we're gonna see why shortly. But the idea is to kind of ask questions about why this current setting. And as you start approaching kind of the edge of the place, you start seeing the ocean, and with houses submerged. So, and you start understanding that people had to start moving as the houses started getting submerged to the sort of makeshift habitation, but eventually have to move away from the place for safer grounds. The experience is not that long in duration, but the idea is to kind of show the core concept of what can potentially happen. And one cool thing I thought would be quite nice to add is the ability to grab things, like do your kind of bits, picking things up, clearing a path so you could continue your journey. So you can actually pick up things on one hand and then move around with the other. And as I move forward, I go down this sort of crevice, fissure in the soil, which is actually eroded landscape as a result of the water going up. So I'm trying to find my way towards the sea, which you can see from far, shows that it was an embarkation point, which has now been kind of protected with this seawall. And also bear in mind, these shores used to be nesting grounds for turtles. And as we see now, there's one stuck in plastic, which is often what happens in kind of in the current day. So you can actually save the turtle, which gives you like this kind of rewarding feeling, and watch it kind of go back to the ocean. And as it slowly makes its way to the ocean, the game will slowly start turning dark and then bring you back to the present. So that's it for Aftermath. So Aftermath was like the first. Oh, let me post that. Was the first attempt at showcasing how the UN or the researchers are kind of conveying the information, but in a more visual way, so people can understand and grasp the urgency of the matter. The idea of this project is also to kind of tackle the sustainable goals, the SDGs, but I was tackling mostly those 6, at the core of which would be climate action. But also I'm looking at life underwater. From my background, I'm also interested in sustainable cities and communities, how we can start conversation about creation of new kinds of architectures, build more kind of resilient urban settings, but also think about our consumption and production with the effects of ocean plastics, especially in Aftermath, life on land, obviously, but also partnerships for goals, partnering with different kind of institutions, individuals to kind of take this further. So that's another concept image I did for Aftermath. It looks a bit apocalyptic, but I thought it would be quite something to kind of show what's really happening. So the images are from different parts of the world. So the tidal wave, they call it the king waves. Even though you have the seawall on the right, the wave still manages to come in. And you see the church at the back, but also the idea of kind of creating landmarks, like the mountain in the backdrop is quite well known in Mauritius, but also how infrastructure gets changed and damaged. Again, this one, the idea was to kind of going back to my roots, sort of creating a kind of section through the ocean to see what's really happening underneath, because what we see now is always on the surface, and how animals and aquatic fauna and flora kind of gets impacted by our activities, negative activities, and how people are trying to kind of adapt and mitigate. So that's kind of how the area I got inspired from is at the moment. So it's a church at kind of sea level, basically. At high tide, the water comes up, and some of the houses, the resorts down there used to have like 8 meters, 10 meters of beaches, but now it's diminished to kind of a couple of meters. That's it. That's how it's Aftermath is about, looking at the impact of sea level rise and the shorelines. Well, thank you. If you have any questions, do let me know.
Hi, Vivian.
Hello.
Interesting talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's really interesting because, it actually touches what I've done in the past, because I have been a diver in the past. So I've been part of that big tourism to go to places and to see underwater. And what my biggest observation always was that a lot of people do not have respect for how to be underwater. Which what I mean is by damaging underwater plants and animals. And what a lot of people also don't know is that if you have climate change, so what is the effect of climate change in water? It means that the temperature of seawater is rising, and you only need about 2 or 3 degrees to have coral to go dead and to actually break and to disappear. And a lot of people don't know that. I've seen places where that actually happened.
Yep.
And it's like having like a nuclear bomb exploded on the water. So it's one of the things. And I think using VR, I was just curious. I mean, the app shows mainly everything above water. it would be interesting also to show, like, say, underwater, because a lot of people don't know what the actual damage of this climate change actually has.
Yep. So that was the second part of it. Actually, this project was part of a pitch, Launchpad and World's Challenge, where I was supposed to represent Bond in Canada. But because of the pandemic, all the plans got, got postponed, let's say. And the idea was to create like a second level sort of thing, where you could actually go underwater. So that's still in the works. But I'm also aware, since I'm in Australia, I might as well do something for within the local scene. So I'm currently doing my research on use of immersive technologies like VR to visualize the impact of climate change on cities. So I've taken a coastal city. Where I'm from is where I am currently. Sorry, is a coastal city, and it's quite iconic because you have those kind of skyscrapers by the water, and we also have issues with flooding because most of the city has been built on swamplands, which has been dug and kind of yeah, they haven't really tested this because back in the 70s, 60s, they just kind of brought in excavators and started building houses lifting lands and yeah. So it's interesting to kind of visualize this and see the impact on the current
Yeah,
infrastructure.
we got a remark of Simon Jackson, which says it would be great to see both environments side by side to compare impacts. I agree with that totally, because it definitely shows what the impact is. So you get a feeling of what we are actually causing in this world.
Yes. It'd be quite cool also to use augmented reality for this. This might be quite the appropriate technology to create like portals to see what's now and then what's after.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so that was in the kind of sort of pipeline, let's say. But yeah, it's the problem. But being at university, and well, fortunately, unfortunately, there is like commitments. So it's just finding time to kind of
Yeah.
do this. But yeah, these are really kind of really cool ideas, which I'll hopefully will be able to kind of do in the
Yeah,
future.
another question we had was from the Supreme Newbie. I like the name. He likes it a lot. I had a question too. Is this actually available for download to try it out yourself, or?
Not yet, because even though I'm quite happy to show people, there's still elements in the experience that I'm not totally satisfied. Like normally when I make someone try the headset, I need to direct them by my voice. So one of the comments was to kind of include my voice in game, so it triggers and tells you where to go. Because I didn't want to have like arrows, like waypoints. It detracts from
Yeah,
the experience. So mostly like storytelling. So I'm still working on this. And once I'm, happy with it, probably release it on the Oculus Store or one of the open source platforms.
super.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
But
yeah, you have questions?
yeah, sorry.
I have a,
But also, it would be interesting. I'm trying to kind of get schools on board also to get them start thinking, in sort of workshops, being more immersed.
so I was wondering about that, like what your audience is, or your target audience. Like, are you imagining, like you said, giving this to school children so they can, be more aware, or do you maybe want to give it to politicians or decision makers, basically, to give them, a better impression of what their decisions are, might cause?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because that's one they asked me during the pitch what the target audience was. As I initially saw it, with the target audience is like massive. It could be, primary kids to politicians, right? But I think I'm taking it in phases. So at the moment, the target audience would be mostly university students within the setting I'm in. And then slowly kind of raising it, I've approached now educators and university lecturers. And now, as part of my research, it's a good excuse to approach government officials. So look, here you have like a 3-tier system. You have the federal, the state, and local government. So I've started with the local government and state, showing them what the impact will be, what the potential impact could be actually. And also the target is the UN. So, you know, big goal, we'll see.
And do you have plans for the software itself? Like, what's the next thing you want to build into it? Like maybe like the user can make decisions and see the impact of those, or what do you imagine?
So whenever I design my experiences or games, I'm fully aware that I'm not a professionally kind of trained developer. So I work around my limitations. So it's a bit of a hacky way of doing things, but as long as it works, I'm happy with it. So at the moment, I'm using Aftermath as a kind of platform to develop one for Australia, which I'm currently doing. It won't be as detailed, but it will be of similar kind of setting, but looking at issues they have here, like potential effects of cyclones or flood levels, which did reach at some point in time a waist high in the city of Brisbane, which is quite something. And they will have markers everywhere all around the city to show where the level was in 1974. So it wasn't that far long ago. And recently, the most recent one was 2011. So it happens, and it's just a matter of kind of bringing that together in a virtual setting. And the future ones, the idea is also to use augmented reality. So I've done a couple of work with AR as well. The idea of portals, and trying to be more ambitious, trying to get possibly like programmers on board who have more experience in you know, C# or Unity or even Unreal. Why not? To kind of create a more decision-based also experience, which shows the impact. I tried doing with this one. So the video you saw is like, I think version 2. The new one, there's a couple of changes where if you kind of clean this, a certain portion of the rubbish starts disappearing. So it's this kind of feedback I wanted to kind of reward the reward system you often find in games. So yeah, so that's some of the kind of the ideas in the pipeline. Just need to put it in practice now.
Yeah. We're just getting a new comment
Sure.
from Simon. It would be interesting to have different versions to also show other climate change effects, increased storm damage, severe snow, and other deep climate differences.
Yep.
Speaking of Texas.
Yeah, that would actually be really cool to do. And one thing I realized, it's only when you're actually experiencing it yourself that you know what damages it's causing to you and your environment. Like in Mauritius, people who don't live near the coast, they won't feel the impact of receding shorelines. People who are not in Australia who don't know about the impact of bushfires, the smoke it causes, the damages it does to kangaroos or koalas, or habitation, the smoke it the smoke-induced health damages. And that's what also my research is looking at, like how personal encounters with climatic change or extreme weather conditions impacts your perception of climate change. So when you are in the US, for instance, you may have hurricanes. I've personally never experienced a hurricane, but I can only imagine. So using VR as a platform, instead of you going to the US to experience a hurricane, you can actually take a headset, a VR headset, and experience it at home safely. So that's kind of the goal with Aftermath. So taking kind of putting you in the position of the person being impacted, so it kind of creates awareness and increases empathy, which I think is important in kind of these experiences.
You mentioned that currently, due to university, you have less time. We actually have someone who is interested in working on this.
Oh, that'd be quite cool, actually.
Oh, no, sorry, that's the other one. Yeah, thanks.
It's
if it's
yeah,
made for Unity.
you can get hold of me. I don't know if you can send my email or.
Yeah, if he wants to contact you, he can contact us if required. If he can't find you online, and I can bring him in contact with you. So that's not a problem.
So it's made in Unity as the supreme newbie. Just ask. And I tend to find that Unity, if you start a project on Unity in a certain version, you just don't want to change, because if you update, it crashes the whole the whole system. So you'd like to just kind of keep on with what you have currently. So the version is 2019. I mean, it's freely available. But yeah, definitely up for partnerships, because that's one of the goals also, to kind of find people, like-minded people, also do exhibitions. So if you have institutions or museums would be interested, I'll be happy to share the file also, if that's something that would be of interest to educators, and get feedback from it as well.
Perfect. As soon as he reaches out, I will make sure that I bring him in contact with you.
Sure.
And that means for everyone who is interested in these things. So
yeah.
Thank
you for reaching out.
Yeah. Thank you for being so early this morning.
Oh, pleasure. Now the sun is coming out.
Yeah, I can see that. That's actually funny to see. It was really dark there, and it starts to. So thanks again for the session. So it was perfect, and it will be recorded, so you can actually point people to the session back later if you want.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really great to see such a useful application of new technologies.
Oh, happy to share, and happy to for you to spread the word also. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day in Australia.
Bye.
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 So that was it for today.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Yes, so we still have the AltSpaceVR environment open. If you want to join, we will be there too. And let's finishing up. So two things before we finish actually up. One is a call for speakers. So we're looking for speakers on any topic. And if you have something like about 40-minute talk, we have 5 minutes questions. Sign up, please. And even if you're not selected for Global XR Talks, we have also the Global XR Conference, which is a 3-day event, and probably we will reach out to you to also do your session there. And last and not least, we want to thank our sponsors, again, which are Microsoft, Capgemini, Ordina, and the Dutch police. So thank you again. Hopefully see some of you in AltSpaceVR, and I wish you all the best tonight.
Thank
Stay
you,
safe.
everyone. Bye-bye.